It's good to be here and talk a little bit about the security side of the world. And I think we have three different businesses represented here today. So I'll let everybody introduce themselves. First off, Justin, why don't you go first?
Afternoon, everyone. I'm Justin Staskiewicz, Director of Payments and Fraud for Restaurant Brands International. That's comprised of Burger King, Tim Hortons, Popeyes, and Firehouse Subs.
Raymond?
Hey guys, I'm Raymond Huynh. I'm Head of Risk at ShopBack. We're Asia Pacific's largest cashback online rewards shopping discovery platform.
And Leo?
I'm Leo. I'm leading the fraud, trust, and safety team for Dapper Labs, the platform Web3 for NBA Top Shot, NFL All Day, UFC Strike, La Liga, CryptoKitties, and more.
And so what we have here is not just four security people if you count me, right? So we security people are the paranoid people, but we try to also be the practical paranoid people. And so it's really about finding the right balance of trust and friction. We also have three different continents represented. We have Europe, we have Asia, and the continent of Canada. And these are all global businesses, which is also kind of an interesting thing because these are universal themes. Before we dive into the session, one of the things I've been doing security for a long time, and I think the business model typically drives the way that companies have to go to market with security. Security means something different at a bank versus a defense contractor versus a coffee shop. There's no one universal definition of security. It's very context dependent. So maybe we could start with Leo on the end and just talk a little bit about Leo, and then Raymond and Justin, talk a little bit about the businesses that you're in and the kind of environment in which you operate.
Sure. So yeah. So in the Web3 space today, like it's an open business, meaning that all users have access to being able to watch what other users are transacting in the platform. So that brings a lot of complexity for a team that needs to be one step ahead, not only of the fraudsters or the hackers, but also from the user base, right? So that's actually what makes this space really challenging for us.
Raymond?
Yeah, sure. So ShopBack is in 4 core business units. We're in online cashback, vouchers, pay and pay later. I would say that traditionally our core business of online cashback has very, very distinctly different fraud typologies compared to our financial service products, which is vouchers, pay and pay later. The financial service business units have the very traditional card payment fraud typologies, but definitely if we talk about online cashback and then our platform in general, we have a multitude of things that we try to stop and prevent, those traditional things being promo abuse, account takeover, and then the associated risks that are born out of our different products.
So RBI, we've got 4 iconic brands. We've got in-store, we've got drive-through, but additionally we're also in the e-commerce space. So we have mobile apps for each of the brands. We have .com experiences. We have loyalty programs. So similarly, we're also looking at things like account takeover, about loyalty abuse. Obviously, chargebacks are a concern in the e-commerce space. So really looking at right now that digital experience for each of the brands in the U.S. and Canada.
So in putting together this session, and we had a good conversation, I guess, a couple weeks ago, where we were talking about the themes that we're seeing in our respective businesses. And what really stands out to me for doing this for a long time is a quote from a guy named Dan Gear about security. And he said, the best security has exactly 2 properties. It's invisible and it's unavoidable. And I think anybody who flew here probably saw a lot of very visible security, right? So it may be not avoidable, but it's very visible. So that's an example of something that's really hard to do, to be able to deliver both invisibility of security and unavoidability of security. And it's a challenge that I think we all face. It really resonated when we discussed it as a group. And so I thought that's a good jumping off point for this discussion. Leo, you shared a story, I think, in sort of rolling out 2FA and dialing 2FA out and back again, and the kind of friction that you saw on either side. Maybe you could share a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So what happened was we made a product decision to try to move to adaptive MFA, right? So the idea was to have a little bit of better customer experience, meaning that we believed that, okay, we're gonna have less friction on the customer flow. But what happened, in fact, was we saw a lot of users complaining about the fact that they felt their accounts, their wallets were not as safe as it was using the 2FA flow. So we kind of made a decision to.
So they wanted the visibility.
Exactly. They were like, I have tons of assets in my account. I have a lot of balance in my account, and now where is the 2FA? Where is my phone number check that I'm not doing anymore, right? So I think we, on our side, for us, like learnings from this was, first, we need to make sure that the community, the user base is aware that we are making such a decision. We need to educate the users because we thought that we were doing something good, something, on the customer experience, but actually we made a call to roll back, make sure that, we want all users to go to 2FA until we are able to reach to a point that we can allow users to choose their level of security. But we need to take one step before, which is educating them, make sure that they understand the levels of risks they are. And then after that, we can move towards adaptive MFA flow, right?
And so sort of real security versus security theater in a way. And when you say adaptive, what's the range of things that you look at when you think of adaptive authentication?
We do have an identity solution in place that was offering us a solution to identify good users, right? I mean, coming from the same device fingerprint, the same location, same IP. And then we had like a big drop from 45% of all users that were going through the 2FA flow. It dropped to 10%, 15%. And then that was the difference that we saw, that actually users complaining that, they were, legit users, but they want to have their 2FA process in place. And we were not able to actually do this technically speaking. So that's why we decided to roll back to the way it was until we're able to find a solution that will allow users to choose what they want on their security levels.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you're protecting the user's assets, right? So that's something they take very seriously, rightly so. Justin, in your world, I know speed and throughput is really important. If I want my chicken sandwich from Popeyes, if I want my coffee from Tim Hortons in the morning, I want that quickly, and you want to put people through. How do you balance sort of the security checks, right? You're not going to put a TSA line in front of every chicken sandwich. How do you balance the upfront friction versus the throughput, and how does that sort of play out in mobile apps and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. For us, throughput and guest experience is paramount. So you think about kind of the advent of the drive-through and the quick service restaurant, trying to mimic that quick user experience in a digital age. So you look at things like our mobile apps and creating a loyalty account for us. So to set up an account with any of our brands, you don't have to have a password. So, essentially any way that we can remove data points is the better. Thinking about things like MFA or two-factoring or 3DS, those are just not a possibility for us in the quick service world. It would just be too much friction for the guest. Additionally,
so you don't want somebody to enroll in an MFA before they buy a chicken sandwich?
And additionally, if I got two-factored for a cup of coffee, I'd be insulted. Like, who do you think I am? Like,
how much coffee do you think I'm going to drink?
Right, twirling my evil mustache as I take over the world, one cup of coffee at a time. Yeah, that's overkill. You're dropping a nuke on a problem. So, we absolutely try to limit the amount of information that we're requesting of the customer to manually give us at any of our touch points, and relying very much so on the under the hood metrics that we can gather, like user behavior, spending behavior, thinking about geographies. Where do we see a lot of fraudulent activity? There are certain hubs and communities. So I always pick on Dana. He's not here today, but he's a native Brooklynite. I'm not even sure what the term is, but we see a lot of fraud in Brooklyn. So you think about, you're comparing the fraud in Brooklyn to the middle of Montana. Your decline rate and your risk threshold for the middle of Montana should essentially be nothing. In Brooklyn, it's okay to be higher. So absolutely.
We're safe here, though, because we're in Manhattan. We're across the bridge.
That's right.
The fraud is.
We've got a river separating us.
Yeah.
It's paramount to have the least amount of friction possible to try to mimic that QSR experience in the payment world.
And I assume there are actual, numbers that are in use for, length of time and wait time and drive-through and all of that. I mean, those are not mythical exercises that are just left up to the security department to solve. It's something where you're working in partnership with those teams.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that's been in the QSR world, not just RBI, but in the QSR world in general, is you think about, how the land itself is developed and how the building is laid out. If you can shave off 3 seconds of throughput time in the drive-through across every restaurant in the U.S., that's millions and millions of dollars added up over time. So you think about the amount of engineering of the physical location that goes into ensuring that the guests are moved through quickly. Once again, mimicking that online, how do you make sure that they are having a good experience? The majority of people that place an online order with us are on their way to the store, if not in the store. So you take that idea and you think about, like, do we have the ability to manually review transactions, something like that. It's just, we've got to be a pass-fail model. There's literally no wiggle room to make a decision.
Excellent. And Raymond, you've recently expanded your firm's strategy to include more financial services, which I'm assuming introduces more fraud and other types of use cases than you've had tackled in the past. You and I were talking a little bit about the financial services world earlier, and curious to know, like, how has that changed things at ShopBack, and how has that changed sort of your go-to-market strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. What I would say that is, since we've ventured into sort of financial services, we've opened up a number of different vectors for people to sort of abuse our platform if there is account takeover. I'm going to touch upon multi-factor authentication, which Leo touched upon as well, where we went from a stage where we saw ATO, so we countered it with a lot of friction at the sign-up. So we did an email sign-up that was required, followed by a mobile OTP. And I think for people that work in fraud and risk, it makes sense to prevent ATO. But from a consumer's point of view, it's highly confusing, right? Like, why is there actually two forms of factor authentication? So what we did was we actually moved away from two-factor sort of authentication at the sign-up, and we moved it to other parts of the flow. And we determined where we were going to introduce that was based off where the individual would get the most financial gain. So for example, if it was in the payments flow when you're making an order or a transaction, we would introduce it right at the end. On our platform for online cashback, individuals can accrue cashback from purchases, and for a sort of a bad actor, you're able to take over one's account and withdraw that cash straight into your bank account. So what we did there was we then built other mechanisms at the point of withdrawal to prevent that bad actor from executing on that withdrawal. And what we saw was a very sort of high increase in our conversion rates because we removed that friction from the sign-up process.
And that's really the theme of this conference, right? Is maximizing customer lifetime value, and so maybe continuing on that theme, Raymond, all the way from account creation through the full life cycle of the customer. What kinds of things did you see in terms of both challenges and benefits of dealing with ATO to maximize customer lifetime value?
Yeah, so I think what was really interesting was when we engaged in this initiative where we removed the multi-factor authentication, our team was able to synthesize new data points. So I think with bad actors, they have one intent in mind, is to, how do I enter this person's account and quickly take advantage of what's being presented to me, whether it be withdrawing the cash to their own accounts, whether it's taking over the cards that are already loaded on the account and then making a purchase. So what we were able to see was behavioral metrics, such as time to purchase, time to withdrawal, are there clicks within an account's app on different things that a good actor would demonstrate. We were able to actually synthesize a lot of different data points that we previously didn't, and allowed us to circumvent the fact that we removed two-factor authentication from the flow, and which has really greatly increased our conversion rates all across our products in the ShopBack ecosystem.
And I appreciate you sharing that story because, like I said at the beginning, security isn't one thing to each business. In some cases, it's adding more, taking away more, and it can mean different things based on the use cases. So I think that's really helpful. In terms of the theme, and by the way, we will save some time at the end of this for questions if people have them, because I know there's just a security is a very exciting topic, even if, how many people are in information security departments here? Okay, so thank you, Jude. Thank you, Jude. So not so many. If nothing else, maybe this will help you. How many people have challenges talking to their information security departments? Okay, there we go, thank you. So maybe we'll help with some of those. We will save time for questions at the end. On that theme of maximizing customer lifetime value, Leo, you talk, there's some of the most famous brands in the world on this stage, and particularly in your business with things like NBA, La Liga. How does dealing with ATO translate to your world and protect, and the responsibility really that you have? Security is a shared responsibility when you're the vendor. How do you take your part of the shared responsibility on with defending against ATO and for the likes of NBA? How does that play out?
Yes, I think like the key factor it's NFT communities, Web3 communities. They're really, really strong, meaning that thinking on a long-term value for those customers. It's really important for us to build this strong relationship between us, being the platform, being the company, with our user base, with the community that are actually using or playing, purchasing those NFTs, because that's definitely going to bring us a long-term relationship with those. And as they are really a community base, they will talk to their friends. We have seen tons of cases that they will bring new users to the platform if they trust the platform or the product they are, playing with, right? So, as soon as they we as a platform lose the credibility, or we don't have a really good reputation with our user base, we can see definitely, a decrease on the market, right? Actually, users will stop trading, they will move away, they will try different products. And again, as Web3, blockchain is still something new and something really open that everyone can see what's happening. It's a really, big challenge for us to make sure that we are delivering what our user base is expecting from us. So, following up on Discords, Reddit, Twitter, we have teams dedicated to make sure that the community is feeling safe, measuring our reputation and measuring the sentiment of the community, because we know that this will bring us a long-term relationship and will actually increase our business. So making sure that you don't have users complaining about ATOs on the platform, that's for us is key, right? We're talking about, as you said, users that actually own moments are worth millions of dollars. It's like it's a wallet that you have a lot of balance, you have a lot of assets on those accounts, and then we have not only NBA, as you said, La Liga, NFL, UFC. So we have people with different, they actually are using different of our products, but everything goes to one single wallet, right? So that's really important for us to make sure that we have security in place to avoid any possible ATOs. And the fact is that we don't allow people to have multiple accounts, right? It's a policy of the company because we saw in the past people open multiple accounts to have their assets divided in different accounts. So they're like, okay, if I have an ATO in one account, I have still other 4 accounts with other assets. I'm not going to put all my eggs in one basket, right? So we had to build this relationship of trust with the community to make sure that, yes, put everything on one place and we will hold your accounts safe, and we will have liability if anything happens to those accounts.
And I'm assuming that your mission to keep your customers safe, you also get some hard requirements, not just from customers, but also from the brands that you protect. So could you talk a little bit about the concerns that you hear from, you don't have to name names, but the concerns that you would hear from the types of brands that you work from, and what are their drivers, what's their focus items that they look for?
It all goes always back to the reputation and how the user base will be communicating. For me, I joined Dapper Labs not even a year ago, and it was a game changing in terms of understanding how your customers, your users, have a huge impact to what decisions you make as a business. Because as again, they are on the watch, they are actually proactively doing investigations. They are contacting customer service on our sides to tell that they believe a user is doing something against the rules. So that relationship, it's when those big brands come to Dapper Labs, they always want to know, okay, is the platform safe? Are we going to have people complaining about the transactions that are happening on the platform? Are we going to be able to grow this reputation, this relationship with the users? That's always their main concern in this Web3 space.
And I think reputation is, the conference is about trust, right? And trust is all about reputation. In our world in security, if you think about reputation, it takes a lifetime to earn it, and you can lose it in 5 seconds with a mistake. So let's stick with that reputation for a second. Raymond, maybe, and then Justin, you can comment on, how do you think about sort of building and earning your reputation for your security programs and your organization, things maybe that you hear from your business, things that you hear from your partners. How do you think about the brand and reputation? Maybe we start with Raymond on that one.
Yeah, I would say that in Asia Pacific especially, we do have a strong brand in sort of our core markets such as Singapore and Malaysia. But I think as we start to venture into other markets where we don't have such a strong brand presence, it's very crucial that we don't sort of sour the relationship we have with our new consumers. And at the end of the day, even though we work closely with our merchants to extend our services of payments and then extend our services of online cashback, at the end of the day, the end user, are the users that we really want to value and that we have to not break trust. So in order to help us achieve that, we do have to continue to sort of introduce friction points in our risk management stack that actually doesn't decrease our engagement rates. So some of the key success metrics that we look at ShopBack are definitely, on the payment side, what are our chargeback rates? Are they continuing to decrease without sort of impeding on our conversion rates from sign up all the way to sort of payment, and then also without impeding on our engagement rates? What are our monthly active users? What are our daily active users? So those are some of the core metrics that we always look at to sort of translate into a trust metric, if you will.
Interesting. Thanks.
So thinking about brand reputation and in the QSR world, it's a very saturated market. So likely everyone in here has your favorite fast food restaurant that you like to go to, your go-to. And if it's not an RBI one, talk to me, maybe we'll get you to be an RBI one. But because of that, there are really no new untapped customers. You'd be hard-pressed to find someone who doesn't know Burger King. Maybe it's not your favorite, but you know Burger King. Same thing with McDonald's. Maybe it's not your favorite, but you know McDonald's. So every little detail that you can get to differentiate yourself from the competitors is how you gain market share. So when you think about things like the guest experience, payments, fraud, security, all of those things are key, because you think about one of the biggest selling points that started the QSR takeoff is consistency in product, that you can go to any of these fast food locations and get the exact same experience and the exact same product that you were looking for in your hometown or the first time that you got it. So that consistency is key as well in the guest experience and then the security and consumer side. Thinking about, do you have the trust and do you have the brand reputation of the consumer so that they feel confident when you do ask for a data point or you are asking them to sign up for loyalty, that they feel secure in giving you that information. It doesn't take very much, to your point, a data breach or a negative experience or something comes out into the press for that to rapidly deteriorate. And in that hyper-competitive space, that can be the difference between having someone be a everyday loyal shopper to we'll be lucky to see you again.
So it's a way to deepen potentially the relationship that you have with the customer through trust.
100%.
Yep. So, and I'd like to get everybody's thoughts on this as well. And Justin, we'll start with you because I think you have the most obvious use case. But as the world goes to not just e-commerce but also mobile commerce, how does mobile commerce and dealing with fraud in mobile applications impact your world, and what are both the sort of threats and opportunities that you see there, and how does dealing with fraud, ATO, and that sort of things change or not with mobile applications?
It's Taking it one step back, thinking about the fact that we're predominantly a franchisee-based brand for any of our 4 brands. So you have franchisees that are strictly focused on growing their business and making sales. So from an RBI level, we have to have something that can be custom tailored, but also one size fits all, so that the franchisees aren't having to track things down themselves and managing things themselves. We want those individuals to be focused on running their business and running the store locations. So we need something kind of at a high level that we can use to be able to fit that need. Obviously, chargebacks are always a problem because at the end of the day, that does impact the franchisees. So, if you don't have happy franchisees, you don't have a happy day. So, chargebacks, false positives, growing the business, just absolutely paramount to the digital experience.
And there's no franchisee that's pro-fraud, right? So this is a universal theme that you can bring from corporate to something that every franchisee is going to care about versus other things I'm assuming franchisees have much higher or lower interest levels in, but fraud is something that's universally frowned upon. So,
yes, when a chargeback comes in and hits a franchisee, everybody wants to talk about chargebacks.
yes, very good. Raymond, how does mobile applications and mobile commerce play into your world?
Yeah, I think mobile applications has definitely accelerated the proliferation of adoption, and there's some key challenges that we face because of this mobile adoption. What I will say is that as part of the ShopBack ecosystem, we do want to limit our consumers to one account only, and that's quite simply because we want to drive new consumers to our merchants, and merchants want to see that the orders that are coming for certain accounts are only from that account. So it's not one individual creating 20 accounts to then take advantage of promo codes, to take advantage of upsized cashback deals, to take advantage of new consumer deals. And one of the challenges that we face is that we have a lot of internal tools that will triangulate whether or not this individual belongs to a certain profile. And one of those data points is, for example, your device ID. But I would say that during COVID and across maybe the last couple of years, we've seen very sophisticated fraudsters have multiple devices where they'll now circumvent that device check that we have, that we silently check, and then we also check your credit card, we'll check your IP. I would say it's presented new challenges in terms of fraudsters that understand sort of the mechanics that we have to triangulate whether a user is using a single account. I'm not going to sort of expose how we sort of tackle that, but it's definitely a challenge that's being presented to us due to the proliferation of mobile apps.
So an ongoing cat and mouse game, where if you're the mouse, I guess in this example, and you're not watching what the cat is doing, there's only so much you can do, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I would say that it's very vital to our business because merchants engage our platform because they do believe we are driving them new consumers, which we are. But we're always having to be ahead of the curve in terms of what we see, the fraud typologies, and how fraudsters are actually abusing our platform.
And so, Leo, in your case, you've got not just mobile apps, but also like mobile wallets and hot wallets and cold wallets and all these other things. How do these? Does mobile change anything, or is it just business as usual and you just do the same thing anyway, or how does that look in your world?
No, it actually makes the life for us much easier if you are, transacting or logging in from a mobile. The reason is what I mentioned before. Since we only allow one user, actually a user to hold just one wallet or have one account, it's much easier for us to identify the data points that are coming from mobile to say, okay, that device belongs to this user, right? Because if when we move to the desktop, we usually have, people trying to bypass our policies saying, oh, that's a house computer. We can actually, it's shared between, wife and husband, or, a father and a son. And with mobile, it's much harder for you to bring an excuse that you would try to share your phone with someone else, right? So that's actually plays a big role for us when you are, and today the transactions on mobile it's over 50% of everything that happens within Dapper. Mm-hmm. So we don't have today still a dedicated app, but we have the mobile version of things, which makes life for us much easier to make sure that we know what kind of users we are interacting with.
Okay, great. So we'll ask. I'm going to ask one last question for everybody on the panel, and then we'll throw it open to a question if people have any. The name of this conference is Impact. So when you come into the office in the morning or evening, I don't know what your hours are, Leo, but when you come into the office to start your day, what does impact mean to you?
For me, today means the reputation that I'm able to deliver to Dapper Labs. Meaning, the user base are, what's the feeling? How they're looking at us? They feel safe transacting on Dapper Labs. Will they actually bring new friends, new family members to actually increase, the market that we have? Thanks.
Raymond.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think in terms of impact for us, it's really about how do we continue to increase our risk management stack without impeding on our conversion rates, our sign-up rates, our new consumer adoption rates.
There's a financial services person on the panel when they can't come through without risk management. It has to be in every finance. Speaking as an old banker, it always has to be there. So I appreciate that. Justin.
Yeah, similarly, but additionally, not being the no person in the room, thinking about being in payments and being in fraud and being in security, wanting the things that we're doing to be able to succeed and designing them with the fraudsters and the loopholes in mind, so that when we come to market with a new offer or a new product, that they're already built from the ground up day one to be ready to succeed from a fraud and security standpoint, so that we're not launching something that's hindered and being dragged back because we have to circle back around to these fraud or security concerns, and essentially just drags us behind the competition and how fast we're moving into new spaces.
Great. I'll share mine. I'll say for me, impact means we want to make the bad people's life harder. We want to make all of your good people's life easier. So and I think my fellow panelists really summarized it really well. It's all about delivering on the reputation, like Leo said, managing the risk, like Raymond said, and not always saying, the answer is not always no to be able to do that, like Justin said. So thank you for summarizing that really nicely. We do have time for maybe one question. If there's a mic probably somewhere in the audience, right back there. We have a question right here, it looks like.
Hi, I have a question for Raymond. I really appreciate what you share because that's the challenge I have. So a new person coming in to look at the risk management, but the business side, they say don't want to cause trouble for the people to sign up. They are so afraid of lose the conversion number, how many people open an account. But say, how can I stop the fraudulent thing? And they don't want to collect anything. They don't want to ask for email, don't want to ask for phone number or anything. So you just share that you just make people's life easier to not asking the second verification, but you try to do that when they need to do something have a higher impact, like need to withdraw the money. So if you don't collect the information up front, though, how do you convince the person to give you the second data point to convert? To verify the person is the person when they want to withdraw the money.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think to talk about one example and one initiative that we did was, even though we don't collect the second data point or second factor authentication at the sign-up step, we do allow the user to input that on their account page. And what we've quickly learned is that the individuals that do input a second factor authentication optionally are the ones that are not the bad actors. And what we've also learned that we could synthesize or trigger different things besides mobile and email OTP. One is Forta, for example. We can trigger 3DS at the payment flow. Other things that we can do as well is implement biometrics, for example. That's also something that we've leveraged on. But I would say that removing the two-factor at the sign-up has actually allowed us to collect a number of different data points within our app, which we now utilize to say, no, we actually believe this is an account takeover, and then we trigger the collection of the second factor. So those are the things that we're doing at the moment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that question. So it is now time to move to the 2:35 sessions. I hope you enjoy the rest of your conference, and I'd like to thank very much Leo, all the way from Portugal, Raymond, all the way from Singapore, and Justin, Ohio/Canada. Thank you for your time today. It was really interesting conversation with many, many different use cases. So thank you for your time, and enjoy the rest of the conference.